What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 19 of the Steam Deck podcast, Flip Screen Games weekly video game podcast about Valve's hot new handheld, the Steam Deck. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Steve. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
It is good to be back. We did good episode. I'm excited about this episode. All right, this is gonna be a fun one. We are talking all about the interview from The Verge with Lawrence Yang and Pierre-Loup Griffais. I don't know if I said that right, but I felt very confident.
I think it's Griffais.
Griffais? Still pretty good. Pretty good. And not a bad French pronunciation from me on that one.
Or as everyone in the Valve family refers to him as Plagman. That's his tag that he goes by everywhere. So.
Okay. Lawrence Yang and Plagman. I'm gonna just call him Griff, you know? That's my nickname for him. So the two of them were interviewed by The Verge this week, and this is one of those interviews I love where it's like the deep dive interview and it's like very transparent. It's like you just made like 10 headlines. Like any one of these things would have been big news, right? And there's
it was great, yeah.
a million. It's awesome. It's a really meaty one.
Well, I really liked it because Sean Hollister, who put the article together, did the initial review 9 months ago, and he wrote that the Steam Deck wasn't ready. But most people, he said, clearly disagreed, and it's been the best-selling PC and item on Steam for 30 of the past 41 weeks.
Let's go.
And so he was doing an updated piece on it, but he wanted to talk to, like, he had some questions he wanted, and then Lawrence and Pierre-Loup were just like, yeah, sure, we'll answer. And they're very candid.
They were very candid.
Really great.
They talked about the Steam Deck successor. They talked about updates they're making to the current model. They talked about a Steam Deck controller 2. Sorry, a Steam controller 2. Excuse me. A lot of exciting stuff. So I'm ready to just jump into it because we've got a good amount to talk about here. So Yang said that like the team is at a point where they're currently working off of two big lists, right? Which are things we want to fix and things we still want to make. And
yeah, and because of that, they said that they struggle to see a point where they consider it done. Like I think Sean asked the question, is it stable yet? Like, is it going to be stable? Because like he had an issue at the beginning where it was like quite unstable software. Obviously, some of the issues that we pointed out on the show. And Pierre-Loup said we're never really going to consider it done, and we're going to keep pushing things. And as Lawrence said, like as they continue to like build new features and more people come on board, they like keep getting more bugs that crop up. So both lists keep growing. So they're slowly working through them.
And they made a comment about like trying to be more cautious about what updates they push out and like how quickly they push them out because they've pushed out some embarrassing bugs and things like that. So still a little bit of that energy even as it gets, bigger and more cautious. But one of the things that they said, this was from Griff, who said, we're aiming to make the update process as painless and smooth as possible. You just reboot into them. And like that seems to be the direction that we're looking to move in, right? Is like making it more seamless, making it more, I don't want to say traditional, but more, I guess what you'd expect from like a more consumer,
it's more console-like rather than PC-like. I think they're trying to move it to that consumer device, so it's plug and play. But I've definitely noticed that the pace in which updates move from the preview lane over to stable has very much slowed down. Like we seem to get like a stable build once a month, maybe once every 2 months now. And then they are like really testing on the preview and the beta branches before they push that through. And I think that's probably why we still haven't seen support for VRR come through, because that's been due now since the docs release, which I think was in August at this point. So it's been a good while. But yeah, it's interesting to kind of hear how they work, and as well as the software tweaks, they're also working on like a bunch of hardware tweaks. Obviously, there was a few things that people had issues with at the beginning. Most notably was the fan, like that really loud, like whiny fan, which was the Delta fan. I have one of those fans in my Steam Deck.
Okay, I was gonna say because like I
Still
feel
do.
like I've never experienced like it's loud enough sometimes,
You
but
can find out what fan you've got if you go now into your Steam Deck settings, and then you can
oh,
go to the hardware section, and it'll tell you who made your fan. Mine was made by Delta. I think yours may well be by, I think it's Huanyong or
shout out to Han Wang
Huaying or something like that.
Huan Yang.
Sorry, I'm terrible at Chinese. So you can buy those fans from iFixit. They're the only ones that iFixit sell because they're quieter. But Valve engineered a solution with foam, and they've added like foam into all of the new Steam Decks that come off the line. But they stopped making Steam Decks with the Delta fan while people were making these complaints until they could come up with a solution, and they came up with one with with foam. I'm interested to see if mine came back changed somehow when mine went in for an RMA. Still sounds the same to me, so I don't think so. They've still got the whiny fan. I'm gonna have to live with it forever.
Well, not forever, right? Until Steam Deck 2.
Well, I mean, and I can also swap it out. It's one of the most easy component switches if I want to, and you can buy them on iFixit for
I
like
mean, maybe that's a
$10.
video. Maybe that's a video
And
for
not
you to
it's
make.
not expensive to swap it out, so I could do that. But they've also made a couple of other changes. One of the biggest issues that iFixit had with the device when they did the teardown was how difficult the battery was to replace because it was really, really glued in there. And so they've rolled out a change already to change the geometry of the adhesive, making the battery easier to loosen, said Lawrence Yang. And so beyond that, they've also then made other minor tweaks to the Steam and the quick access button and how those feel.
Mm-hmm.
No, that change was made in August. So it's very interesting that they are just willing to go in there and make these changes without making like formal revisions. It's just like, okay, people have made complaints about these buttons. Let's see if we can just fix them.
Yeah, it's very interesting. The whole thing feels very ramshackle. Like it's like very like, they're just like, oh yeah, cool, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that. And it's just like it's very fascinating. They just operate so differently than other hardware producers.
It feels very much like how a startup would work.
Yeah.
Like, oh, someone on Reddit said the fan's really whiny. Okay, well, let's see if we can change it. Oh, I found out someone on Reddit found out that they can use electrical tape to change the fan curve. Okay, let's see if we can add foam in there and replicate that.
It's
And they
so
did.
funny.
So it's like
Yeah.
it's really strange.
I think that's part of the fun though, right? Like that is part of the excitement around the device, at least for me.
I love it. I love the fact that the community just all comes around. There's a problem. How can we solve it? Let's figure this out. Like never anything that's too challenging for them. The fact that you can buy all the components from iFixit if you have any problems and you are more like willing to repair it, you can do. It's great. Um, but interesting that they stopped with the fan for a while. Like there was a rumor that they had stopped completely, but the Delta fan's coming back. So people will have that fan, but they may not even realize because of the change they've made.
It's very, very interesting. So then they talked a little bit more about SteamOS and kind of their vision for how they want to make a play for the living room, right? Or I guess how they don't want to in some ways. So we have two quotes here. This first one comes from Yang, who said, "Once it's widely available, not only are we excited to see other manufacturers making their own handheld PC gaming devices, we're excited to see people make their own Steam OS machines that could include small PCs that they put next to their TV." So it's funny because that obviously is something we've talked about quite a bit, right? Is the idea of like a successor to the Steambox initiative that they had, where, and this might, if you're a younger listener, if you maybe weren't paying attention to Steam at the time, this was like back in 2013, 2014, I think it was. Where
Yeah,
they
at the same time Big Picture Mode was released.
Right, and they partnered with a number of different PC developers, and everybody had their own, console-like PC that was a quote-unquote Steam box, right? And we've been talking a lot about the idea of them potentially creating, a proprietary Steam box that, is kind of, maybe an alternative to the Steam Deck or like a companion to the Steam Deck and having that kind of set-top box experience.
Yeah, they were called Steam machines,
Steam
not
machines.
Steam boxes.
Excuse
But
me.
yeah, they came out in 2015. Didn't sell too well, and they quickly kind of phased out. But because of that, that's why the Steam controller existed. That's why Big Picture Mode existed. That's why SteamOS itself even exists, because SteamOS 1 shipped on those boxes, and it's the reason Proton's around. So we've got Steam Deck owners have a lot to thank those failed machines for, because I think without that, we never would have got the Steam Deck. It never would have come to all of these things coming together in the right time, the right place for the Steam Deck to come together. But yeah, um, I would be very excited for Valve to have a go at it. And I know Griffais said that
Yeah.
they are testing additional concepts in the living room, but things are very busy with the deck right now, and we can't be everywhere at once.
And
I would
then
love
Yang added
them
to that
to.
and said, "We're doing our own experiments, but we'd love to work with third parties to see what they would bring to the table as well." And said that the dock might already be the quote unquote missing link for those who are looking to have that living room game console. And said that the work that Valve put into UI scaling and third party controller support should be transferable to anybody else's Steam box as well. So it sounds like they're thinking about it, but it doesn't sound like it's a priority. And it seems like they're kind of hoping that third parties will step up and create those devices that they
And I
can then
think they
support.
will. I can easily see us getting to a point where you get pre-built and you kind of pick between OSs, and you one of the options is Windows and the other option is Steam OS, and you choose what you want on there, and you can have it boot directly into Steam just like the Steam Deck does, and you just use it as if it was like a big Steam Deck plugged into your TV, but it's obviously going to be more powerful because it's a
I
full-blown
I want that
PC.
from Valve though. Like I don't want a third party solution. I want them to make it because I like the Steam Deck and I like the work they've done with the Steam Deck, and I would love to see them be able to extend that to a companion device. But I get what they're saying where it's just like they only have so much bandwidth and like their focus is on building out the Steam Deck and iterating on the Steam Deck. So I'm not necessarily surprised that they feel that way, but it's kind of a bummer. Like that's really what I want to see, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if at the very least, the chip that was in the Steam Deck, if it could have supported eGPUs, I think we would have probably been halfway there, because you could easily see like a dock that was more of an enclosure that contained like its own power supply and its own GPU, but it doesn't, unfortunately. Only these AMD 6800U handhelds do, and it's a real shame because that would have been the way to go. I think with stuff like FSR3 coming out, things like that, potentially the dock makes it more of a viable alternative if they
Yeah.
can figure out some of the stuff that we have complained about around it not knowing the difference between it being in handheld mode and docked mode, and having like profiles for each, and maybe allowing the developers to detect, oh, they're in docked mode, they're in handheld mode, and making that shift and that change. I think a lot of that stuff then does go towards the dock becoming a more viable alternative. People are still playing Switches on their big screen TVs and having a great time with them. I think it is possible to have a good time
Yeah, for
with the
sure.
Steam Deck on your TV.
I just I would love to have a higher powered option that doesn't require me to build an additional PC and maintain an additional PC. Because like the
Yeah.
idea of building something that's powerful enough to do what I want it to do and then is also in a small enough case that I can shove it in my entertainment center um is already kind of a tall ask and certainly not a cheap one. And then on top of that, then I need to go through the trouble of like, all right, like, do I want to launch Steam every time I open it? Am I going to keep a mouse and keyboard in my living room? Right. Like, and then if I'm not, is there an ability for us to get to the point where we can just have it, base launch like like, I'm sure that these things will get figured out, but
I mean, some of those things are solved already, right? Like with the new gamepad UI, you can have it automatically boot into Steam when you boot up Windows if you
you can
wanted
have
to
it
run
boot into
Windows.
big picture mode, right? Like, so
Yeah,
that
you can
it'll
have it
just
boot
give you the
directly
Steam
into
Deck.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it can boot straight
So
into
that's
that.
doable.
And when SteamOS 3's image is available and the installer is available, which we've seen that they're prepping
Yeah.
for, you'll be able to install it on anything. I'd recommend checking out some of like Minis Forum. Check out them, and some of their mini PCs that they do are really great. You can get ones with discrete graphics cards in there. Really like weird range of designs. There's one that looks like an old school flatbed scanner, and they'll easily fit underneath a TV
Oh, these are
into like
tiny
a
boys.
Yeah, they are tiny, but it's like they have like discrete graphics cards. The NUCX 15 and 6 and 17 has like an RTX
But it's like, what do
3070
these
in there.
cost? Like, these got to be expensive as hell, right? Like,
They are pretty pricey. Yeah, I think they're about $1,000.
okay,
But it's a full
they
blown
have a bare
full
bone one
blown
that's
PC.
560.
Yeah, you want like one of the game like mini PCs. The Elite Mini HX90 is meant to be really great though. Well, that's worth checking out. Check Steam OS on that. You have a good time with it.
The Elite
The bare
Mini.
bones means it doesn't come with any RAM. It doesn't come with any storage, by the way. So you need
Okay.
to add that yourself.
So the Elite Mini B5500 is the one you're talking about?
HX90.
What?
The Elite Mini HX90.
Okay. This isn't even. They got too many. See, this is what I'm talking about, man. Like, this is the problem, right? Like, this is when it comes to like a PC I'm using for work, cool. Like, customize it, whatever, right? But like, this is why people like consoles, right? Is like, I don't want to have to like, okay, there's like 30 different versions, and which one do I actually need, and blah blah blah. It's like, you just want it to work, and that's
Buy the one
what's
that you
nice
can
about the Steam Deck.
buy the one you can afford. It'll play the games you want.
Which one did you say?
The HX90, the Elite Mini HX90.
HX90. Okay, so you
Yeah.
get this one. They don't even have the ones with more. Okay, so get the one with 32 gigabytes of RAM and a 512 gigabyte SSD. 750. Not too bad.
Decent price. That's the same price as the like high end Steam Deck.
Yeah, that's not so bad.
Yeah. That's got a decent spec on it. It's a Ryzen 9. It's an APU, so it's got the integrated GPU in
This
there.
thing literally looks like a router. It's so little.
Yeah, they're tiny. But yeah, the NUC series is the ones with like the discrete graphics cards. They're the real powerhouses, and they're $1,000 for the bare bones models. But yeah, they're really cool. They're really cool devices. And if like more companies like this can exist and can add SteamOS as an option, then great, because it means more people are in that ecosystem. More people are able to contribute to.
Do you still think you'll do something like this? Like, do you have any interest in a device like this?
I really want to build a PC for up here.
Yeah, you need one for
and
work.
then but even if it's not work, right? I feel like my solution would be use Steam Link and just play on my TV with Steam Link through the house. Like, I've used remote play from the Xbox to the Steam Deck. It works just fine. I can imagine that doing the same thing with Steam Link from Steam to my Steam Deck would be absolutely fine too.
You don't think
Especially
something
if
like
it was
this would be
wired in with
interesting to
Ethernet.
like play games that your Steam Deck can't play though?
No, not really. I feel like if I'm gonna play games that my Steam Deck can't play, I'm probably gonna play them on a console at the
Yeah.
moment. But I play majority handheld. So the majority of the time I want to play games is on my Steam Deck is handheld. I'm not going, oh, I really want to plug into the TV and play this game. I'm playing games on the Steam Deck that work well on a handheld.
Sure, but you don't see a scenario where you'd be interested in loading higher cost games on a device like this and then streaming them to your deck to play them in handheld?
Yes, I do. I do see that.
You
And
could
I
do that with,
probably would if I
you could do
yeah,
that with
if I
PC upstairs though, right?
yeah, I would do it with the PC upstairs rather than a small PC like this. But these are really useful things, especially if you just want something that's plug and play. You're not bothered about upgradability and components and things like that. Just buy something like this. It's essentially like buying a gaming laptop, but it's in like a box form instead, and you
Yeah.
plug it in.
It's interesting.
You not seen any of these mini PCs before?
No, I'm not familiar with them. It's not really like a thing I really thought to ask for before now. You know, like it's like I have a friend who is a Steam Deck owner as well and is like a big PC gamer, and he was the first person I ever saw do that, like build a living room PC with the express intention of it being a gaming device, not a work PC as well. And even that was in a case that was like, I don't know, this big, right? Like it was large, you know. It was larger than current gen consoles. It couldn't fit in an entertainment system or anything like that. So yeah, I wasn't really aware that this was an option.
Yeah, they're really cool. They're really popular for people that have them in like an entertainment center, either as like a home theater PC where they've got like
How many
something like Plex running on it.
how many gigs? Oh, that's an interesting idea. Shit, am I gonna buy one of these? Um, how many gigs of RAM does the Steam Deck have?
Steam Deck has, I believe, 16, or that
16?
maybe 8.
That's what I was thinking.
I think it's 16 though.
8 seems low.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah.
16.
Okay.
But it's shared RAM, so it's shared RAM between the CPU and the GPU. Whereas if you have a discrete GPU, gets its own RAM, it has its own VRAM. So
Gotcha.
a big chunk of that is used by the GPU. Depending on the game, it will allocate it either to the GPU or to the CPU.
Gotcha. Okay. It's interesting. So, speaking of interesting, we're going to talk about the second gen of Steam Deck and that it's on the way in just a second here. But before we do that, let me remind you that this episode of the Steam Deck podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of December. They are, of course, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valenz, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Asobi, Mary Berry, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. Y'all are the realest of the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. Make sure, if you want to get involved, whether that's on Patreon, whether that's on the Discord, wherever you want to get involved, however you want to become a member of the community, head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you can find links to all the places you can find us all over the web where we are making content for you. And we thank you for tuning into this week's show. So, let's talk about the next gen of Steam Decks, right? So, we have a quote here. This one comes from Griffais. Right now, the fact that all the Steam Decks can play the same games and that we have one target for users to understand what kind of performance level to expect when you're playing and for developers to understand what to target, there's a lot of value in having that one spec. I think we'll opt to keep one performance level for a little bit longer and only look at changing the performance level when there is a significant gain to be had. So it sounds like, and they said that what the next gen looks like, right? The second wave of Steam Decks is going to be like improving things like the screen quality and battery life, and it'll be more of like a, switch to switch OLED type upgrade than, like PS4 to PS4 Pro, to say, for an example, right?
Or I could even also see it being, in terms of the battery life, that switch to the like first revision switch. Do you remember when it got you 2 extra hours battery life? And that was because of the chip that they put in there. They didn't put a bigger battery cell in there. It was a more efficient chip, and they used those power efficiencies to give you better battery life rather than better performance. It sounds like that's what Valve's target will be too. I'm very curious though. Do you think, in terms of their like partnership with iFixit and obviously their like ethos, that we'll get upgrade kits where we could potentially put a better screen into our current Steam Deck?
That's a great question. I would imagine, yeah, right? Like, if they have that partnership with iFixit, it feels like all they would need to do is make that allowed, right? And like, they're letting people replace the fan. Why wouldn't they let you replace? They're letting you replace the battery. Why wouldn't they let you replace it with a newer battery that works longer, or let you maybe screens a little tougher? I don't know about the mechanics of that.
You can buy screens from iFixit. They do let you
You can get like the pricier screen,
you can buy
right from the.
you can buy every component separately. You can buy a motherboard from them.
And
So
I
you
would
build
think,
your own
yeah,
thing.
right. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, it just is whether they want to keep that as like the reason you're upgrading to another Steam Deck, right? And they're getting that profit. But I guess it doesn't really matter if they make the cost of the upgrade kit
Right.
to
Have parity.
be that upgrade price.
Like
It's like,
you wouldn't get a 1-to-1, but like I don't think everyone's gonna upgrade every time they iterate either, right? Like I'm not gonna buy a new Steam Deck just because it has a better battery life, right? Like I'm just not,
Got an OLED on it though, you might.
Yeah, I might, but if they gave me the ability to upgrade the screen myself, like, like, wouldn't it be better to get my money somehow than for me to be like, I'll wait for the next one? I've already seen people do that. Matt Murphy from the community, he quote tweeted this Verge article and was like, oh, they're coming up with a second wave. I can wait then. It's like, oh, okay. So I think that that's a thing too, right? Is like, do you want to dissuade people from buying because there might be a better one next year. There might be a better one 2
I
years
feel like
from now.
people have been thinking about that a lot for like the Switch, but it's never seemed to dissuade them from buying at this point. It's crazy to me. It's just like,
No, and you're right about that, but I think Valve, they're not in the same position, right? There's about 1 million Steam Decks in the wild, and probably a lot more than that now, but compared to the several million Nintendo Switches in the wild. So, I think, I feel like that feels in line with their ethos of like, hey, you were an early adopter, you got a Gen 1 Steam Deck, like, that, I don't think they want to punish us for that, right? Like, why wouldn't they let us upgrade our screen or our battery if they already let us do that?
yeah, I mean, it just, I guess a part of it comes down to what the steps are for that, right?
Yeah.
If the screen doesn't fit, they've got like a different design shell and case, and like
Yeah,
they've shrunk the bezels or something,
that'll be the
then that's going to be
differentiator.
tricky. They won't be able to do that. I can imagine they probably keep this shape and this size for around for a while, and they stick to that, and because they've made the cases, they've made the packaging. Why change that if all you're going to say is right now it's got a nicer screen, and we can charge the same price for it, but it's got a nicer screen. And some people will upgrade, some people won't. Some people will buy it because it's now the second gen.
Yeah.
They can see that Valve's committed to the product and they wanna jump in. But I would absolutely buy an upgrade to a better screen if it was available. The screen is one of the weakest points on the device, and
I think it's probably the worst thing about it.
yeah, but it enabled them to hit that 349 price point, right? I think if they'd have chucked an OLED in there, it would have been starting price probably at 500, 600.
It, it would have been nice if there was an OLED option.
I feel like
But
that top end model, if it was an OLED instead of the
I
etched
would have bought it.
glass, I probably would have gone for it.
Yeah, I would have
Yeah.
been like, fuck it. Like, like let's do it, right? Like let's go all in on this. But I I I think it's probably likely that we'll have the ability to upgrade our Gen 1 devices at some point. I hadn't thought about it, but now that you bring it up, I would honestly be more surprised if they didn't let us.
Yeah, I really hope so. It makes what Valve is saying about this being a PC like it's the final thing, right? It's like, oh, it's also upgradable in terms of components, and we're now going to also sell 2 terabyte chips SSDs if you want to upgrade to a larger model SSD, and we're going to now sell new sticks. Like maybe we've improved the sticks so they're now Hall effect sensors.
That's like
And we're
a
going to
good
give you
way for
those
them to
as
also
well.
have the ability for them to keep one SKU, but allow you to make like if you do want to be like, oh, like like yeah, we don't sell the model with the better nubs, but you can buy better nubs, right? Or like whatever, right? Like because maybe they don't want to like break the SKU up too much and have like, oh, this one's super crazy expensive and this one's this. Like the differences between the three models they have are very clear, and I doubt they want to muddy the
Yeah.
waters too much.
I think some people aren't clear on the difference between the lower end model and the other two. The fact, because I think some people still think that there is a performance differential between them, but there isn't. They're all the same. It's just different storage is really the only difference between the models.
It
Apart from the
impacts
high
loading
end
though.
model, very, very minor in terms of loading. And if you're playing games from an SD card, it's not going to make a difference anyway. And I think a lot of people play games from an SD card, especially on that 64 gig model.
Sure.
They're going to be playing games from the SD card. So I wouldn't worry about the speed of the storage all that much. It's really just the capacity that's the big difference. And then the top end model, obviously, you've got the etched glass screen, a slightly nicer case. It comes with like a little pouch for the charger and a couple of other bits and pieces. Not worth it, in my opinion, though.
I'd wait for an upgrade. So talking on the Steam Controller 2, something we've also talked about quite a bit. They did
Yeah.
make mention of it in a way that I found pretty exciting. Yang said, yeah, we want to make that happen. It's just a question of how and when. I think it's likely that we'll explore that because it's something we wanted as well. Right now, we're focusing on the deck, so it's a little bit of the same thing as the micro console question. It's definitely something where we'd be excited to work with a third party to explore ourselves, excuse me. Again, hoping that this is a thing that they do themselves, but this is something I'd be a lot more open to them doing a third party partnership because I could see them being like, oh, like let's partner with 8-Bit Dough or one of those companies that we know makes like S rank third-party controllers.
Yeah,
And
or even Gillikit. I'd be happy with them. They're the
sure.
ones making the Hall effect sticks, right? And then you get like if they can then partner with them, give them the really good trackpads that Valve has developed in house. We get the haptics from
Yeah,
those. We get the gyro stuff, the back buttons. We want controller like parity with the Steam Deck,
right.
so that when you're playing on TV, you've got all of the same options available to you apart from the touchscreen. Because I think that's the thing that the Steam controller is missing. That's the thing that the Xbox controller, the PlayStation controller, the whatever controller you use, it doesn't have all of the same buttons, all of the same things that the Steam Deck has currently. And it can cause problems if you've got a controller config you're using on the deck itself. Say you're using the trackpad, say you're using the back buttons, and you switch to a controller that doesn't have them. You've got to reconfigure it every single time.
Yeah,
It's
you
a bit
want to
of a
be able to
pain.
have the exact same experience you're having when you're playing it in handheld. Like that's got
Yeah.
to be the goal, I think. And the idea of them either figuring it out themselves or like I said, partnering with somebody, with a proven track record, right? Like 8-Bit Dome made an Xbox controller, right? How crazy would it be for them to make a Steam controller? Not that crazy, right? You could see how that would work. And then what was that other one that we were looking at?
That was the Gillikit one. The
That was
King
the
Kong
Gillikit
Pro 2.
from
Yeah.
the okay, yeah, and like that was I'd be great with that too. I think either of those would make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Gillikit's the only ones that make Hall effects sticks. I think they have the patent on them.
Okay,
So they're the only ones making them at the moment. So if they want Hall effect sticks, you got to go to them anyway. And I could see them partnering up with them and getting Hall effect sticks in
yeah,
the Steam Deck 2 and in the Steam controller 2. It's a
that'd be great.
possibility. But for now, I think they're absolutely right, though. The focus on the deck, double down on it. It's clearly working for them. I'd much rather have them spending all their time on these little hardware revisions to this and what could be really, really great
Yeah,
from a
you don't want them to
successor
divide
to
their
it.
fake too much. If anything,
Especially
it's
as it's
it's like I'd
clearly
like to
such
see
a
them
small
expand,
team.
right? Like bring more people in and be like, cool, this is your project now. This is whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like people just choose what they want to work on at
Yeah,
Valve. It's just like, yeah, we wanted to build the Steam Deck, so we did.
yeah, for sure. But it's like, okay, cool. So like, hire somebody who wants to do that with the controller, right? Like hire
Yeah.
somebody who wants to do that with the micro console, and like, let them, in collaboration with the Steam Deck folks, develop companion pieces, companion accessories. We'll see. They also talked about working on an audio mixer for game, music, and chat audio. So Griff said, we have been developing the technology needed to do that, adding that the company needed to tweak components of the Linux audio stack to make it work. You can control the audio volume and duck the volume of certain applications without affecting the whole system, and we'll be rolling that out to Deck at some point. And then he said that the next
Which is
step
really
is going to be
cool.
to figure out the right UI, which is great. I think that the current version is not bad. Like it works well enough. Like I've when I was playing Multiversus a lot, I was using the in-game Steam Deck chat often to play with my friend Jack. It's actually the guy I mentioned earlier with the set-top box. And it works pretty well. Like it balances audio well. I feel like it's rare that I wasn't hearing what I wanted to be hearing. So the idea of them giving you just like a little bit more control, yeah, great.
Well, it's that and also being able to use Discord or Spotify if you've got those installed and using those as a secondary application because
Yeah.
you always got the application switcher and you can have multiple applications open. So you can have Discord open and be on a Discord call. But at the moment, there's no way to control that volume. It's a global system volume for everything. So if you want to be able to control it, really the only solution you've got is to go into your game itself and turn down like the master volume in the sound settings of the game. And that's not a great solution. So I'm glad to hear that they are working on that. And they're also working on some other audio related stuff with the Bluetooth audio lag. You can already make the change, Yang said, in desktop mode with the profile and codec selection, and it's going to carry over to they're going to bring that over to the gaming mode too. And Bluetooth microphone support would be really, really cool as well. And they said they're looking into it, but due to certification quality and device switching issues, we still recommend using a wired microphone or the built-in microphone. I mean,
Honestly, the
I
built-in
think
mic is not bad. It's better than it has any right to be. Like it, I think especially right considering like when you're playing in handheld, you're right there. right? Like it's like your voice is not traveling that
Yeah.
far. That's how I played exclusively, right? Like it would just be like I pop on headphones, sometimes play without headphones, and I'm sitting there, holding it about this far from my face, right? And like I can hear my friend perfectly, he can hear me perfectly. It's no problem.
Yeah, and thanks to the what was it called? The audio sync, echo sync. Thanks to the echo sync bug, that everyone knows how it works now. So they have like an echo sync that picks up your echo and the voice, so it doesn't loop back into the microphone. Which is really cool. So they figured out a
It's really
solution for that as
good.
well.
Yeah,
So,
it's like
yeah.
no other like microphone works this seamlessly, and like the audio is good for something that's picking up room audio. Like it's a at least to some degree. I don't know like what the shape of
Well,
the
it's pointed
cone
right
is.
at you, so I imagine it's probably pretty directional in terms of, well, we
Yeah.
know you're looking directly at it, so we'll just make it so it only picks up audio from the front, because it's like right above
Even
the
so,
right at
though,
the top
there's a
right of the
fan
screen.
right next to it that's loud as fuck, and it doesn't pick that up. Like it's the noise reduction, the work that it's doing to compress your voice and make it sound normal is it's good. It's really good. It works a lot better than I ever expected it would. I remember the first time I used it, we jumped on the chat and we're like, let's see how well this works, and maybe we'll get on Discord if it sucks. We just use it every time because it just works.
Oh, that's good.
And it's as
That's good.
simple as like I'm in the game, my buddy shoots me a message, "Oh, you want to play?" "Yeah, cool." Click, and we're already in a chat. Like it's that seamless, And it's like it's a better experience than Discord if you're only trying to talk to one person, because it's like it's just right there. It's built in. You literally push the three dots button and be like, "Answer." Cool. Hey, what's up? Let's play. It's awesome. It's a really, really
That's
good.
good.
It's a seamless experience as it stands. So any amount of additional control and the ability, like if you do want to use Discord, if you are trying to play music while you're also doing like that's great. That's a great feature. And I'm sure they'll figure it out.
I was glad to hear the audio codec stuff was being pulled over to game mode. I've been playing Resident Evil Village, and I've been streaming that from my Xbox, so I've got a little bit of lag already.
Mm.
And then when I have Bluetooth headphones into the mix, I can walk and then I'll hear his footsteps afterwards. And I kept thinking that someone else was in the room with me, but it
That
was just
sucks.
Ethan's footsteps, and I was just, I can't play this with Bluetooth headphones. It's untenable at the moment. So I'm happy to hear that they're fixing the Bluetooth audio lag.
I know this isn't the time or place for this. Bluetooth's awful fucking technology, and we should stop supporting it, and we should come up with something better. It doesn't work. That's
Bluetooth does work. The problem is all of the good codecs are patented up to the eyeballs, and no one can use them without paying lots of money. And Linux is open source software, so it doesn't have the option to give people lots of money in order
then
to
maybe
do
we
that.
should stop using Bluetooth. Wired headphones are better. They are better. Like I'm just last thing on this. I swear to God, I saw a thing earlier where somebody is selling an AirPods. It's like an AirPod like hook, right? Like it's like a wire for you to stick your AirPods on so you don't lose them and connect them to your device. We've come full circle. That's called a fucking wire, gang. Wire your headsets. It works better.
I love my wireless earphones. I love my wireless headphones, but sometimes the cable's all you need, and
And
I'll
the
agree
thing
with
is,
you
don't
on
get me
that.
wrong, I'm a fucking asshole, all right? This cable's too long. It's constantly getting stuck on things. It drives me fucking crazy, but at least I can hear what I'm trying to listen to. So, maybe we just move on from Bluetooth as a culture.
I know. I think people always want wireless. I think we just need to stop
Just
allowing
make
people to
something good
patent
though. Like
technology.
make a
Yeah.
version that works maybe, and it doesn't rely on proprietary technology. Like
I think stuff like AV1, which is like an open royalty-free codec for video that opens up the doors for like an open royalty-free codec for Bluetooth. I mean, what is aptX? I can imagine aptX is owned by Qualcomm, so they're going to charge you for that. That's the best codec in terms of latency, aptX LL, and you got to pay for it, which is a problem. It's annoying.
pay for it or don't put Bluetooth in your shit.
So the problem you've got with Linux
I
is
hear it's
because
out.
it's
It's
open
open source,
source.
so they can't.
You cannot include it because as part of the license for the SteamOS, if you want the source code, they have to provide it. They can't provide the source code for that because they don't own it. Yes. So they cannot include that.
Capitalism breeds innovation, right, gang? Anyway, moving things right along. Valve might let Steam Deck owners share per-game power profiles, but not graphic settings. Contextualize this for me, Steve. What does this mean?
So the power profiles is when you click the quick access menu, you go to the performance section, and you can set frame rate limits, GPU clock limits. You can set, I think, the CPU clock limit in there. You can do like your TDP, things like that. They're going to bring. They're thinking of bringing that. They were considering bringing graphic settings, and Griff, as you're calling him, said they considered it, but it's a massive undertaking that I don't think we're really looking into seriously right now. And so they're looking at potentially doing the power profiles and sharing it. And he said that would be pretty doable for us to expand that further and make it so you can share the configurations with the community.
Fine. That's a totally fine solution. It works great with the controller stuff. It's like, I don't think they need to figure it out. Just let.
That's a half solution though. Like, I really would love them to have it so you can like share it in game. And if they aren't willing to do it, then it may be something the community looks into. I'd even consider looking at this myself. Like, I was thinking about how you would do it. I was going to put together like a database of where the configuration file is saved off for the game, and then have that like uploaded to the service, and then we could have like a Decky plugin to figure out what game you're playing, what games in focus, and then find like all the performance profiles that people have created. So I think there'll be a way at some point, even if Valve doesn't do it, that we'll have like shared configurations for games. But they did say, though, that Valve does let games detect that they're running on the deck. And so that's what they're really hoping that more developers are going to do at this point.
I think this is the thing that will get solved within the next year. Whether it's community solution, whether it's from Valve, like, it sounds like it's not that complicated to get something that works better than what we have right now, whether or not it's a perfect solution, and that's fine.
Yeah, it's just about where they spend their resources at the moment, right? It's like, do you want to fix bugs and add like other features like the audio mixer that people want, or and the Bluetooth audio lag, or do you want to add stuff like this in? Like, there's only obviously a finite amount of resource, and I think at the moment they're trying to fix bugs and squash bugs and get it more stable, and then it's like, right, okay, now we can start really chipping away at the feature list that we haven't been. Because there's still stuff in there, right, that they're working on. There's that customization menu that showed up months ago in the internal build that is going to allow you to be able to buy with the points shop additional things. At the moment, it seems like it's just going to be the startup screens, but then potentially that expands to full themes and stuff like that. That's obviously been put on ice while they're working on other stuff because we've not seen any more about it. And that's fine. As long as they get to it at some point, I really do think this would be a really great value proposition and would add a lot, because the controller configurations are really just game changing.
Yeah, I think the more that they can leverage power users and like the people like, you know, you and people who are even like more nuts than you, I mean that with nothing but love, who want to solve these problems and get excited about solving them, or like, I tried like 6,000 configurations and this is the good one. And then you just let a bunch of people try it and be like, yeah, this works, upvote. This works, upvote. And then just, as a user who doesn't want to do that shit at all, let me, when I go to boot up a new game, be like, what's everybody's power configuration for this? Okay, bam, good, cool. This is the one I'll use. Great. You know, like, or like auto-apply the most popular one, right? Like something like that. Like,
or have an official one, because there's like a lot of games that have official controller profiles. If you could have an official profile, like a performance profile, the developer has said, yep, this is the one we use, this is the one we built against, and this is the one we recommend. I think that's probably a really great way to go as well.
Yeah. That feels inevitable. It really does. I think they'll figure that out. I think it's too important to making it more accessible to normies, and I think that's what they want to do. So then they also talked about bringing mobile games to Steam Deck, and they were asked, or publishers have asked about the idea of being able to bring touchscreen only games, and Griff said that Valve is definitely interested, and that they think it's more of like a storefront thing, where he said that they'd want to be really clear that Steam shoppers would know that they're getting a touchscreen only experience. And he said, I think we'd have to work a little bit on the store and the messaging around that. So it sounds like something that will come. It's more a matter of like, this is a fundamental change to the store, because then you're going to be selling games that wouldn't work on PC, right? It would only work on Steam Deck. So I imagine that's probably what they're thinking about, is like, how do you segment that properly? How do you make it so that you don't have a situation where a person buys a game thinking that it's going to work on their PC and it's actually just a mobile game that
Is touch that different to a mouse cursor though? Like, can't you replicate touch with a mouse pointer
you
most
can.
of the time anyway?
You can, but I would imagine that there's development that goes into that, right? It's not just like a one-to-one. So I don't know if they can create a layer that like does that.
Usually, whenever I've built something, it's been like a pointing device, and it doesn't care if it's a finger, doesn't care if it's a mouse cursor. It's a pointing device, and so unless it needs multiple fingers, like pinch and zoom, or like something like that, I feel like for the most part, most mobile games, like Marvel Snap, for example, right?
You can play that
on Steam.
Yeah, you can play that.
You can download that on the Steam Deck, and you can just use a mouse for that, and you just flick it around. So I don't see
it. Also does support the touchscreen. You can do it that way. So
yeah, which is cool. It's like, I like that there's options. I'd like these to be stuffed away in their own category, called things that I'll never touch, because I don't want to play trash like that. Thank you.
Just talking shit about every mobile game?
For the most part, yeah. I think if you're willing to put your game on Steam without even making any concession and thinking about how this is going to work for the majority of players, that you just want to take your game and lazily port it and just chuck it straight up. Like, because that's what they were asking, right? It's like, well, can we just deploy this straight away as is without doing anything?
Yeah,
it's just like, yeah, you could, but wouldn't it be great if you actually spent some time to make it fit the aspect ratio of the screen, and maybe also work with the mouse? And
like Marvel Snap, mobile game of the year, that they did a proper Steam release? Come on.
And like maybe even support a controller. Like, there's a lot of things I think that you could. A lot of mobile games could work just fine on Steam, and we've seen a lot of mobile games ported to the Switch. There's just a lot of developers who just possibly see it as a bit of a cash grab, and it's just like, well, we'll just publish this.
Yeah, it's like actually good games that get ported, right? Is the thing, right? It's like, oh yeah, we made this work on this other platform because this game is actually valuable. It's not a mobile game in the tree. It's like, it's a good game that was on mobile, you know, like.
Yeah.
It's a good idea though. I'd like to see them figure this out. I think there's plenty of games that, like, you know, I can think of a handful of games that are on mobile that are actually good, legit games that should be on other platforms. Something like Florence is a great video game. It would be great to see that on Steam. That might already be on Steam, actually. But
Florence is already on Steam.
Okay. Yeah, well, guess what? You can download that and Marvel Snap. Those are the only two good mobile games. So there you go. You're already set.
Vampire Survivors is a mobile game now, and that's a really good game. So you can
play the PC version though.
Yeah, you can.
You can play it with a worst aspect ratio. Wouldn't that be fun? How would you like to see less of the screen? I mean, when they first showed that, and they're like, it's like in not landscape, whatever this one's called. I forget. Portrait. I'm like, why did you do that? Like, why?
Because that's how people play games. That's the kind of game where you're just like,
you just do it with one hand. Yeah, but you can't fucking see anything. It just makes the game way harder. Whatever, it's fine. It doesn't matter. It's not what we're here to talk about.
I missed one, and I want to touch on it before we move on to the anti-cheat thing. And it was about Vulkan and Proton and all of that stuff. And Griffais and Yang told Sean that they spent years developing its own Vulkan graphic drivers, shader compilers, DX11, DX12 implementations, and OS code in-house, which means it doesn't have to farm out fixes to the game publishers. And they said that's why you've been able to see things like Elden Ring performance fixes, where other platforms were still trying to make sense of it. And to some extent, we're always looking at specific game for one reason or another. And Griffais said that they spent 6 months on Halo Infinite, and they basically had to invent new Vulkan features to get that game supported.
That's wild.
6 months to get Halo Infinite working on the Steam Deck.
I can't imagine.
But it also now means it works on any Linux platform.
I can't imagine what working there is like.
The developer.
Like, can you imagine that? You're just like, oh, we're gonna figure this out, and then it's like 6 months later. But did you get that done yet? No, we're still cooking on it. Okay, cool.
Okay, yeah, sure, yeah.
It's got to be the best.
We really do want that game on Steam Deck.
Very cool. So speaking
I
of,
I just
of
I love
oh, go
I
ahead.
just love
Sorry.
though that I love that they take that responsibility on themselves. It's not like, okay, well, if you want your game to work on Steam Deck, you have to go
They're
and
like, no,
develop.
we want
It's just
every game
like
to work on Steam Deck,
it's like we
motherfucker.
want it to work out of the box, and we're
Yeah,
gonna take that responsibility on ourselves.
it's great. I mean, I think that's why stuff gets done. You know, like you don't have to have people like, you know what I mean? Like it's not like when the Switch came out, right? There was like that moment where it's like, oh, which third parties are going to support the Switch? Because the Wii U was a mixed
Mhm.
bag, and everyone's like, let's see if it works out. Like Valve's like, they're like, no, 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 your game works on our thing. We did it. If it works, go ahead, play it everywhere, play it anywhere. Who cares? It's great.
Although this week the Witcher 3 got broken, didn't it, on Steam Deck
Oh,
because
I
of the
didn't see
next
that.
gen update?
The
Completely
update broke
broke
it,
it.
or
The update broke DX12 support for that game,
okay,
and so it just wouldn't work at all. And then Valve
sucks.
deployed a hotfix that then fixed it within like a day.
Man,
Um, and it was like the only thing you needed to do was restart your Steam Deck. That was it. And once you restarted your Steam Deck, it would then magically work.
see, that's the thing. That's why I don't want a micro machine from someone else. I want it from Valve. I want them to make it and then
That's part of
do
Steam
weird shit with it.
OS. So like if you have Steam OS on your little
That's
machine,
what it
it's gonna
is.
get all of the good stuff,
Yeah,
right?
you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. So, keeping the Halo conversation rolling, one of the things they also talked about was anti-cheat features, like you said. So they're working to get games. They specifically called out like Halo Master Chief Collection and Fall Guys. But they're it's funny. Interestingly enough, they said they may need some help from Epic, who owns EAC, the Easy Anti Cheat. That's their anti cheat service. Um, that's interesting, isn't it?
It's also very annoying that Epic controls that anti-cheat and just is like it's still not working, right? Um,
What do you mean?
like they've like it's still not working on the deck. Like easy anti-cheat is still not there all these months later. And it's annoying that it's being held back by just one component, right? All of these games could probably work with anti-cheat disabled. I mean, I know Fall Guys works. It's just there's like a workaround you have to do in order to get it to work. But like Halo Master Chief Collection, if Halo Infinite can work, Halo Master Chief Collection should be able to run. And I would imagine the story mode runs fine. The campaign, it's probably just the online multiplayer. And it's because of anti-cheat, just that one component that's holding it back.
So what's did Epic develop anti cheat or did they just own it?
They bought it.
Okay.
Um, I can't remember who created it, but it's if you want to have a look, go to easy.ac.
I'm on their website. I'm trying
Um,
to figure it out. I'm not. I can't find out like when it was created or whatever. 2004. It looks
I,
like.
yeah, it's a lot. It's an old thing. Um, Easy anti-cheat. I genuinely no idea who owns
They
it.
bought it in 2018.
Okay, yeah, I mean, makes sense. I mean, Valve has their own anti-cheat, um, and it's annoying that they could have quite easily imposed the requirement that if you want to put a game on Steam, you have to use Valve's anti-cheat, right?
Yeah, but they don't want
But
to do that.
they didn't. No, they don't, and that's fine.
They just need to
But yeah,
license it. They just need to license EAC.
no, that's not the problem. The problem is EAC doesn't work on Proton at the moment.
Oh, okay. Okay, so they need to create
They need to work with Epic to get
create a
EAC
layer
working.
for Linux.
Yes.
I'm
I
sure
think it
that'll
works for
work
some
out.
games, but not all
They'll
games,
figure
right?
that
Like
out.
easy anti-cheat is causing a lot of problems at times.
I'm sure Epic would be happy to get it working on Linux, though.
Yeah, like Fall Guys, the Steam version of Fall Guys used to work just fine. And I think it worked out of the box, if I remember correctly. But then when it went to the Epic Store and it went free to play, you have to like move DLLs around and like change a bunch of stuff. Halo Master Chief Collection probably does also work if you move things around. Like such minor fixes that you can do because there is a Proton EAC layer you can download. But even if you go to ProtonDB, it says uh, multiplayer support warning. This game is known to utilize easy anti-cheat. EAC only has a limited support for Linux, but multiplayer functionality varies depending on how the developers implemented it. So it's comes down to Linux. And the last update from Epic on it was in 2021 when they first rolled out support for Linux, Mac, and Steam Deck in September 2021. Since then, we've not had any more on it.
Sounds like it'll get figured out though. Another one of the things on the list of the many things they want to get solved.
Yeah, sadly though, that's one that they need to kick back down the can to Epic and say, right, okay, needs a little bit more tweaking.
Yeah,
for it to fully work.
Hopefully they're willing to play ball. And then the last thing we wanted to highlight from this is that Valve does not have plans to talk about Steam Deck sales. So, of course, we had that 1 million figure that was quoted during
ADE speech.
Yeah, right, with one of their partners. So not an official statement. They've, of course, confirmed that number now, it seems, but
they haven't confirmed it. They even refused to confirm it in the interview.
But there's
Yang would only confirm hundreds of thousands of sales as of August. That was all he was confirmed.
Okay.
But there was like a picture of a cake that a producer on Age of Empires 4 posted that if you zoom in on the screen says 1 million on it, and it's a cake shaped like a Steam Deck. So it's pretty much confirmed. They're just not talking about it for some reason.
Right.
I don't know why you wouldn't be singing from the houses that we've sold 1 million Steam Decks. Isn't this amazing? Rather than, yeah, we sold hundreds of thousands. It's, we're doing well.
Yeah, it seems weird.
Like, why would you not be screaming about that?
I don't know. But interesting that they're not going to be talking about it. I wonder if that's because they have, they have reservations about how many they can get out and things like that, where it's just like, we're not going to focus on that. We're not looking to sell 100 million. We're looking to create an ecosystem.
Quite possibly. Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I think that's probably more on it, right? It's that they don't want to be like, I don't think they necessarily want to own the market. They want people to use Steam, obviously, but they want other handhelds to exist. They want other PCs to exist. And if they're there, maybe they feel like if they're talking about how many they're selling all the time, it would dissuade people from getting into the market, or
it invites comparisons that are negative. Right, like it's the same reason Xbox.
You only sold 1 million, but there's Nintendo Switches sold over 100
There's
million.
155 million Switches, so what the fuck, right? And it's like, yeah, but but they're not Nintendo. That's like they don't care, right? It's the same reason Xbox doesn't come out and parade around the fact that they're in third place, right? Like nobody wants to be like, yeah, we're the loser, right? Like,
I mean, they do when it works for them, but yeah.
Yeah, well, right now they want to. So yeah, it's odd, but I guess it's not deeply surprising when you consider what the Steam Deck is and how they've rolled it out, and the fact that it'll probably take them years to hit multiple millions in the wild versus most consumer tech stuff where it's that's the whole point.
I could see them getting to 2 million next year, maybe even 3 million next year, especially considering they've just moved into the Asia market. They're not even in all English-speaking countries. Yeah, if they can get to Australia next year, potentially then New Zealand, there's some other markets that they can tackle. Go down to South America, start selling stuff there. There's a lot of things they can do.
I don't think this thing will work in South America. They tech is so fucking over. It's $800 to buy a PlayStation 5. This would be a $1,500 console or something like that.
Fair enough. I mean,
at least in certain markets. I know, in Brazil, right? PlayStation 2 was one of the most popular gaming platforms for an entire generation past its relevance because of how fucking expensive consoles are there. They were releasing FIFA on PS2 up until the PS4 was made because people in Brazil and some of those South American markets that are not insignificant markets, but not as big as, say, Europe, America, whatever. They get grifted down there, man. I don't know what it is. I read about it a couple years ago. I don't remember the issue, but yeah, the import tax on tech stuff is just crazy high.
Oh, is the import tax on all technology, like
I think
phones
so.
and stuff as
I'm
well?
and don't quote me on that. Like I said, it's been a couple of years since I read about this because I was fascinated by it. But this was like when the PS4 was coming out that I remember reading this whole thing and getting into it.
Interesting. I mean, the point still stands, right? That they've got a lot of markets that they're not in. They're
Tons of
in
room, tons of room for them to
fewer
expand.
markets than like their competitors by far. So like they've definitely got places they could go to sell more if they really need to. And I would imagine they're looking at their sales figures on games and going, right, where makes sense for us to
I
go?
feel like
Like where are people going to do?
Japan is the market, right? Because like Japan,
They've just launched there,
obviously,
right?
what's that?
They've just launched there, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I mean. I think that's the market that has the biggest potential for growth. Is like we know how much mobile handheld gaming is like a huge part of the video game culture in Japan, right? And we know that PC gaming is like not really a thing there. So like if the Steam Deck can pop off in Japan, not only would it be a great market for the Steam Deck, it would be a whole new market for Steam, you know?
Yeah, I think PC gaming in
Whole new
Japan's
reason.
actually like actually kind of scaled up in the last few years. There was an article on PC Gamer about it in November,
Oh,
and that the
interesting.
market doubled in size from 2018 to
Wow.
2021.
That's huge.
Mm-hmm. So
Huh.
up
I bet
more
you
than
that's why they were at
100%.
TGS.
Yeah, yeah, it's a huge market,
Striking while the iron's hot,
now.
right?
It's grown over $196 million between 2018 and 2021,
It's pretty
and the
good.
active base of gamers has increased by 5 million in that time,
I
with
mean, again, that's
over
like a
4.5
huge
million.
number, but like that's significant.
No, yeah, yeah, well, 4.5 million are playing exclusively on PC, which is up more than 100% from 2015's 2.2 million exclusively.
Yeah, that's huge. That's a huge difference. And
So
this
do
as a
that, add
device.
that plus like yeah, plus like, oh, this is a handheld device as well that's also a PC. Makes a lot of sense that they would want to be there.
Yeah,
But also the fact that PS5s just have been almost impossible to get in their home country has really probably contributed to this as well. Because people still want to play the games, they just can't get the device to play them on.
yeah. And if you can't get a new console, right? Like maybe that's I'll build a PC, right? Like I have money to burn that I wanted to spend on a console. Oh well.
Yeah, they think that plus like COVID lockdowns and the lack of PS5 console availability, and the fact that they're more likely now to accept foreign and indie games for cheaper on PC really like grew the market, made it kind of explode,
Makes a lot of
which
sense.
is cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, whatever gets more people playing more games in more ways is that's good in my book. So yeah, a lot of meat on this bone. A lot of meat on this bone. I appreciate how transparent they are.
Yeah, yeah, they're so candid, it's unreal. It's just like, do you want to make a Steam controller too? Yeah, we do, but we just don't have
We're
time.
not really,
So we might need
yeah, it's
someone
like
else
they
to
like
do it.
literally just give a totally legit, yeah, we'd love to do that, but we'll get around to it or we won't. I don't know. And it's like, okay, like, all right, cool. Whereas, or like, how, like, any one of these questions, right? If you asked Nintendo, you asked Sony, you maybe Xbox a little more transparent, right? But like, but we have nothing to announce at this time. Nothing to announce at this time. Nothing to discuss.
Yeah,
We're
I wouldn't
always
do
we're
that, yeah.
always thinking about the next box. Nothing to discuss at this time, right? Like,
Yeah.
and they're just like, yeah, we're gonna make a second one. It'll come out. It won't be stronger. Like, we already know that now. Like, okay, cool. When? Like, like, yeah, when we get to it, I don't know. We're still pulling shit. We're pulling shit off the line and shoving foam in it. We'll figure it out. I don't know. All right, guys. I love it. I truly do. It makes the Steam Deck like a totally unique product on the market. You know, because it's just such a Valve is such an animal of a different color when you compare them to their competition, quote unquote. Right? I mean, they're all literally in competition, but at this point, they all have such different fucking business models. It's ridiculous, but they're all
Well,
competing
yeah,
for
yeah.
our
Plus,
attention.
well, I mean, and are Xbox and PlayStation really their competition when they're both selling games on Valve's platform at this point? It's like, you sort of are, but you sort of not. Like
Yeah, it's like
Valve's business isn't selling boxes; their business is
selling
selling you
games.
software on their platform, and the competition in that market are selling their games on your platform. So who cares really?
Right. Yeah, I really think the only legitimate competitor they have is Epic.
Yes, I would agree with that. But even they're very different. You know, they're like huge businesses still. The biggest business is still making games and
Mm.
making game engines. Those are the two big businesses that they have. And obviously, Valve don't really make game engines for other people anymore. They had Source for a while, but no one's really using that anymore.
Yeah. And we talked about that, right? I mean, that's the one thing I'd like to see change. I'd love for Valve to get back in that fight, and bring out a new Source engine, bring out new
Hmm.
original software that makes people turn their heads, and you can only get on Steam, things like that.
Yeah, me too.
It's interesting. But yeah, we'll have a lot more to talk about, I imagine. It's like I think there's a lot of threads here that I think we'll be referencing back to this interview for a long time, right? Where it'll be like, oh, it's that thing they talked about in December. Yeah, okay, here we finally saw it. Oh, 2 years later, oh, hey, here's a new Steam Deck controller. There we go. We got around to it. Like pretty interesting. So this one we're going a little long in the tooth. I know there was one other thing we wanted to discuss. You want to just touch on it real quickly?
Yeah, we could touch on it because I think it's interesting. So all of that work that they worked on, right? And they spoke about it. How Lawrence said that all of the work they put into controller support and UI scaling and third party controller support and things like that, anyone can like anyone can utilize it, right? Well, turns out you can play Steam games in your Tesla now. It's in beta, and you can you can just connect a PlayStation controller and play Steam games, and it comes up with the same Steam gamepad UI that's from the Steam Deck.
How's that screen? Is that screen like decent?
That screen is phenomenal. It's a very, very high resolution
It's a good screen. That's cool. So this is like
it's a really good screen.
This is like a legit way to play games. Like it's probably a pretty decent experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you've got access to thousands of games right there in your car when you're charging. Like that is a great value proposition. As much as I don't like the owner of Tesla, that's a very, very good.
Oh yeah, I'll say it loud and proud here right now. Fuck Elon Musk into the ground. I hate that dude. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And I know the sound system in Teslas are pretty good. So probably a pretty decent way to play games.
I bet it's an amazing way to play. I like that they chose Cyberpunk as the choice because they said they wanted to add Cyberpunk, I think, in 2018. He was talking about adding Cyberpunk support maybe 2019 to the Tesla. It's just like, okay, took your time like you do with most things, but you finally did it.
They did it. It's there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
If anybody who listens to us drives a Tesla, I would love to hear how this works, if it's any good.
Yeah, or drive it over to my house and let me try it. I'd be also happy for that. If you have a Tesla and let me drive your Tesla, I'm also happy. And you can just leave it here as well.
I see you were tweeting all kinds of bullshit about how Tesla sucks and no one should buy one, but now you want to drive one. I see.
Yeah, but if you want to give me a free Tesla, I'm also happy
just hand
to
one
take
off,
it,
right? I don't know if they're going to give us a free Tesla now,
Elon
Steve.
Musk is great.
I was just talking shit. I just said to fuck him into the ground. I don't know that he's going to send you a Tesla now. Sorry, but I stand by it.
Yeah. He wasn't going to send me one anyway. It's okay. I also personally feel like there are lots of, and I'll take this moment to say there are lots of great EVs available. And I don't think anyone should buy a Tesla if they think it's the only electric vehicle available. It's not. There are tons. I have 2 EVs on my driveway right now. Go and look around if you don't like that, man.
But they can't play Steam, Steve. So how? What's the point?
Guess what? I carry my Steam Deck with me, and I play it in my car, and it's still a great solution.
Here's what I'm saying, Steve. What I need from you is I need you to hack your electric vehicle and make it play Steam games. Otherwise, I just, I don't know.
I could do it. I think I can put things like with HDMI. I can put things on the screen.
Figure it out.
So.
Figure it out. Make a tutorial.
It's a really shit screen though.
All right, we're going to wrap things up there for the day. Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of the Steam Deck Podcast. Remember, if you want to show your support, if you want to write into the show, flipscreen.games is our website where you can find links to our Patreon, to our Discord, all the places that you can find us all over the web. We're there. So, for the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Steam Deck Podcast. Steve Rose. So I'll say on behalf of him, fuck Elon Musk. See you next week.